Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Zojirushi KBS comparison videos. I have been using both of these for a very long time. This is my mom's. This is my personal one. I brought them down for the holidays, and so I thought it'd be a great time to just start comparing, what they are and the things that I looked for when I was trying to decide between the Zojirushi and the KBS. Now, if you want the full, detailed comparison, check my video out from last week because I tried to go over all the things that I felt were very important and even more things that I didn't even know existed on some of them. So it was a learning lesson for me also. But today we're going to look at the dough function on both of them, and I am going to be making the Tasty 101 pizza dough. I do the dough in the bread machine and then I separate it and put it in the freezer. I actually like it when it sits in the freezer for a little while. One thing to note about the dough functions with these two machines, there are two different ones. You have a quick one and then you have one that does one full rise. For the pizza dough, we are not going to do the full rise. It's going to be the quick cycle on both of them because I actually let my pizza dough sit at room temperature for 24 hours before I put it in the freezer. And you don't really need that first rise for that. Now, just a couple things to note before we get started on the dough. I do, like I said, use the Tasty 101 recipe. However, it's not like a bread machine recipe. I just put it in the order that you're supposed to for bread machines. I have had no issues. In fact, it's my mom's favorite crust. It comes out super thin and crispy. I'm sure you can make it thicker, but we do it thin and crispy. I'll show you later in the video what we do. Also, I'm going to use King Arthur bread flour. Now, I did a test with the 00, the bread flour, and the all-purpose flour. I understand that 00 is supposed to be just amazing. I preferred the bread flour and it's cheaper. So that is what I'm going to be using. I do like using freshly milled flour, but for some reason with pizza dough, I just use plain flour. I just think it needs the plain old regular flour, not the freshly milled. I think that for it to get that thin, crispy crust, it's just one of those situations where you use regular flour. Anyway, so that's what we'll be doing. So I'm going to get these machines set up. I'm going to put the exact same amount in the bread machine. Now you can do a full recipe with the bread machines. However, I find that it spills out the side. It's just such a mess. So I'm only going to do half recipes in each one of these. Okay, so I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of warmed water. Then it calls for ½ of a teaspoon of sugar. It's not a lot. And just a reminder, these are halved recipes. So the full recipe would be 2½ cups of water, 1 tablespoon. You get how it goes. We're going to do 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And I am absolutely obsessed with this olive oil. My best friend's parents gave us some to try, and it is so good. I don't know, it's just something different about it. I like it a lot. Now we're going to do 3½ cups of the King Arthur bread flour. I heard that it actually has a pretty high protein content, so I wonder if that's why we like using it so much. I'm not as knowledgeable in the science behind it, but I do really like this one. Now I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of instant yeast. And then I'm going to also do 1 teaspoon of salt. It's a little more salt than it calls for, but I actually like a little bit saltier dough or crust. And just put it down in the corners. I should have made a better well. So we'll just do this little number right here. Put it a little bit more in the middle. There we go. That'll be fine. Zojirushi. You want to put it in and make sure it snaps twice. Plug it in, that turns it on. And then what we're going to do is just the quick dough. So if you saw my last video, you have to kind of figure out what you want to do. If you do a basic dough, then that's going to be with a rise, but we're just going to do a quick dough. It does have the preheat function, so it's going to take a little bit longer than the KBS. And then once this comes out, then I'll show you what we do after that. Now for the KBS, it has a twist function in there. It doesn't pop, so we're just going to put it in. It's so hard doing this type stuff with one hand. See if I can do it better. There it goes. And then it twists. Close it. I'm going to plug it up. And then once it turns on, you'll see it's a little bit different. All your functions are right here, and you just have to pick which one you want. If you want to have the rise, it's going to be that leavened dough. But for us, we are just going to do quick. I think it's quick. Let me look. 11. Raw dough. I don't know why I couldn't see it. It was right above it. We're doing raw dough. So the raw dough does not have the rise with it. So you'll see it takes 23 minutes. And then if we go to the 12, which is the leavened dough, it's a little bit longer because it's going to do one of the ferments. So let's go on back to 11. Start. Okay, so here is the dough from the KBS. It just mixes really, really well. And I actually forgot to scrape down the sides, and you can see it got most all of it. So it's just a really good mix. Okay, so the KBS has finished its dough. The Zojirushi is still going. It actually has like 16 minutes left. So while that finishes, I'm going to go ahead and get bowls ready. I do let my pizza dough sit for 24 hours. I don't put it in the fridge. I leave it out. I've been doing it this way for 2 years now. No issues. I just like what it does, and then we put it in the freezer. So I do have 2 bowls here. I'm going to get them good and oiled with olive oil, and then I will turn my pizza dough out, get it into a ball, and then put it in here. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm gonna get a paper towel. So I'm just going to put a good amount of olive oil in here, and my paper towel is gonna soak some of that up, but I just want to, you can use your hands. So I'm gonna do that. That simple. Now take this. You could put a little flour if you want to on your surface. I don't really worry with it too much. It's not a super sticky dough. I mean, I guess it is kind of sticky, but I just don't worry about it because all I'm doing is shaping it really quickly to put it in the bowl. Now, I will say, sometimes it does get stuck around the paddle. You could go ahead, I guess, pull the paddle out. And then I'm just going to literally knead it just for a minute. And then once I get it decently kneaded, I'm just going to cup it underneath until it gets a good tight top on it. There we go. And then I just take it, put it in my pan. You can use your hands or the paper towel, but I just like to put a little bit of oil on top. Actually, I'm just going to a little bit more, just a little bit. Rub that in. I like to make sure it's good and coated. And all this is doing is making sure that it stays moist on top, and then also it doesn't stick to anything like the saran wrap. All right, now that we have olive oil on this, it is ready to sit. I'm just going to put some saran wrap over that and then literally just sit it in the other room for 24 hours. If it's a little less, if it's a little more, it doesn't matter. If you want to put it in the fridge, you absolutely can do that. The fridge is just going to slow down the rise a little bit. All right, I'm gonna go put this in the other room, get this oiled, and when the Zojirushi comes out, I'm going to do the exact same thing, and we will get these rising.
Is this the last time I can see you in a while? Is it the truth that you'll be living tonight? We should take a walk, then a swim in the sea. That will mean everything, yeah, everything to me. Can we get out of this one? Waiting and missing. I never thought you would leave me here.
I just want to show you the dough. This dough has been sitting for, gosh, maybe 4 hours now, 5 hours. So you can see it's almost doubled in size. So it's just going to continue to grow, and then tomorrow it'll probably be touching the saran wrap. So I will bring you back in the morning and show you what it looks like. Here is, they both have really big air bubbles in them. But that, you can just push that down, it's fine. But here's what the pizza dough looks like this morning. So I'm probably gonna push the little air bubbles down and then give it a couple more hours. It's kind of cold. It got down to 25 degrees last night, so I may give them a little bit longer. Well, it didn't get 25 degrees in the house, but it was just cold in general in the house. But I may give them a little bit longer to proof before throwing them in the freezer.
So for my pizza dough, I'm actually going to use my scale to make sure that they're as even as they can be. I love this scale so much because you can actually pull the display out and it's so much easier to see, especially when you have like a larger bowl, or in this case a larger plate. I was able to pull the display out and see my numbers exactly. So all I'm going to do is actually weigh my dough, just the full dough amount, and I broke this into 6 different pieces. I should have only broken this into 4. I forgot that it was a half recipe instead of a full recipe. So these pizzas actually turned out quite small. My brother even puts in a little note during my filming that said that I didn't make enough pizza. But if you're doing a full recipe, you can break it into 4 or 6 or even 8 if you do want the smaller pizzas. Or if you're doing a half recipe, I would suggest, if you want the small personal pizzas, the 6 was okay, but probably into 4. Now, once you have your pizza dough rolled, I go ahead and put saran wrap around twice. I do 2 pieces of saran wrap when I'm putting it in the freezer. Now, if I'm going to use it that day, I don't, but I found that the pizza dough just holds up a lot better if you wrap it twice and then put it into a freezer bag. Now, as far as the difference in the KBS and the Zojirushi with the dough function, honestly, I can't tell much of a difference in the actual dough. Both doughs are usually really, really soft, easy to work with, freeze well, the pizzas turn out delicious. The only differences that I think are worth noting is the fact that the Zojirushi is a larger bread pan, and it is much easier to do a full recipe in that bread machine than the KBS. I don't even try to do a full recipe in the KBS. So that is something to note with the Zojirushi, or the difference in the bread pan size of the Zojirushi and the KBS. Now, I also want to note that you do have the preheat function on the Zojirushi, and the KBS you do not. So I do warm my water, going into the KBS. Now for the pizza doughs, I just put the date and exactly what it is onto a Ziploc bag, throw my double wrapped pizza dough in the bag, and throw it in the freezer. And honestly, if it can sit like a month, I think the dough is just so beautiful. It's easy to work with. It crisps up so well. It's my favorite when it has a little bit of time to sit in the freezer.
Okay, you want to pull your dough out of the fridge for an hour to 2 hours before you're going to bake them. And I just kind of leave them loosely in here so they can rise a little bit, but we're going to flatten them out, so I don't worry too much about that. If they're coming from the freezer, I do try to take it out of the freezer and put it in the fridge like that morning or the night before, preferably, just so it has time to thaw out and everything. So gonna let this sit while I get the oven preheating. I try to preheat the oven an entire hour before because we're gonna put the stones in it, and you want those stones good and hot. So we'll get the ovens preheating, and then we'll come back and I'll show you kind of how I make a easy pizza.
I see a tear begins to fall from your eyes. It is the truth that you'll be leaving tonight. I will be there with you even when you are alone, and I'll be waiting here when you come home. Can we get out of this one?
Although small, these pizzas turned out delicious. I genuinely love this dough, but for the Zojirushi and the KBS, it is so convenient to have a bread machine that's able to do all the kneading and that process for you. It makes making pizza at home so easy. I highly suggest it, and I honestly don't think you can go wrong with either machine. I would say the biggest difference is the fact that the Zojirushi is a bigger bread pan. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was informative and gave you some information, between the two machines. I will have a part 3 coming in a couple weeks, so make sure to subscribe and push the notification to be alerted for when that video comes out. Anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful morning, evening, wherever you are. I'll see you next time.
Waiting and missing.